I want to introduce Lieutenant Colonel retired A.J. Maloney, who's going to actually launch the boat. He's, like myself, a Naas man. He's living in exile in Kildare town. Kildare man. But A.J.'s going to say, as he said, a short few words. But then I'm going to say probably even shorter few words. And then my brother-in-law, Mr. Michael McLaughlin, who has written and a song about his great uncle, or great-great uncle, I think, Padre Clancy, who was killed in Dublin Castle on Bloody Sunday. And Michael has written a song and the music to it, and when we draw inside, he's going to sing that song. It's first airing in public, so I'm sure we'll all appreciate that. It's an excellent song. He's a little bit nervous, but he'll get over it. He'll be all right. But AJ's going to say a few words. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming over. Delighted to see you all, and we have a great crowd on a great evening for the launch of the War of Independence in Kildare. So, without any further ado, I'll let AJ say a few words.
Firstly, I want to thank James for asking me to launch his latest book, The War of Independence in County Kildare. I felt very privileged to have been asked. Well, now we're presently entering a decade of centenaries of the most important events in Irish history. The rise of Irish nationalism, the movement to Home Rule, formation of the volunteers, the First World War, the Easter Rising, the War of Independence, the foundation of the state, and culminating in the Civil War, all in the next 10 years. These were great events of national and international importance, involving statesmen and armies. We know of Pearse and Connolly, we know of Collins and De Valera, Lloyd George and Churchill. But we know much less of the people, the men, the women and the children who inhabited the towns, the villages and the countryside of Ireland and of County Kildare at that time. They were just involved and their lives were affected by the actions of the great men and the stirring events that occurred at the time. These are the people that James Durney concentrates on in his books of Irish history. Now, I've lost count of the number of books that James has produced at this stage. At least 10, I think, and maybe more. And his subjects range from the mob to the Irish in Vietnam, the Irish in Korea, the Irish in 2 world wars. He covers social housing in Naas and Kildare, the Civil War, and political unrest in Kildare between 1913 and 1994. A broad range of subjects, you'll agree. All his books are meticulously researched and very readable. His first book, The Mob, dealing with the Irish gangsters in America, is actually very topical at the moment, because among the characters he deals with is Whitey Bulger, currently on trial after a lifetime of murder and mayhem. James told his story in 1997. His latest book, The War of Independence in Kildare, deals with the period just 100 years ago when this state was being formed. He introduces the period with a concise history of rebellion, land agitation, the rise of trade unionism, and the movement towards home rule in the late 18th and throughout the 19th century. This period also saw the birth of the GAA, the Gaelic League, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and the beginning of the movement towards the idea of full sovereignty for the Irish nation. Having set the scene, James goes on then to tell how the ordinary people of Kildare were involved as individuals in those movements and the subsequent great happenings of the early 20th century. Using Sources such as the military archives, our own county library, and national and local papers, as well as material that he gathered himself from individuals who had recollections of the time and had private records. And James brings to life the effects of those happenings on the lives of the ordinary people of County Kildare. Now, anybody from County Kildare, when they read the book, will find fascinating details relating to the people and places that they know or knew. For instance, the part that the north of County Kildare was to take in the Easter 1916 rebellion was planned at a meeting in Michael O'Kelly's house in Glonmagreenia in Naas. As far as I know, and Ronnie tells me, that was the house in which we were born and reared. The activities of the volunteers and subsequently the IRA in County Kildare took place in the context of the large military presence in the county and the economic dependence of many of the people in the county on that military presence. The ambushes, the shootings, the interception of mail, the part of the railwaymen in the passing of dispatches and the interception of official mail are all dealt. James also deals with the role of Cumann na Mán, women who served as nurses, messengers, cooks, and proprietors of safe houses in the county. Many Kildare men were interned, particularly in the RAF camp in the Curragh. James goes through the escape attempts, tunnelling efforts, and the big escape of 50 men through one of the tunnels. The sacrifices of ordinary people are recorded, sometimes for the first time. For example, Michael Fay of Selbridge was a medical student at UCD. He gave up his studies and he spent his time carrying dispatches between Selbridge and Dublin, sometimes up to 3 times a day, on a bicycle. The war dragged on, and the people of Kildare at the time put up with raids and searches, trenched roads, damaged bridges, blackened tans and auxiliaries, until finally, on the 11th of July 1921, the truce was signed, bringing hostilities to an end. Following the Treaty of December 1921, you would, as a Kildare person at the time, have hoped for an end to war, but no, we then had the disastrous Civil War, the object of another book by James. This book is most timely, very readable, and diligently sourced. I would recommend it to all Kildare people, and to anybody interested in perhaps the most important period of our history. So now it is my great pleasure to declare the book officially launched. Thank you.
At that age I said so much because now I don't have to say anything at all. He summed it all up. He summed up the book, and I hope everyone enjoys reading it. But I'm delighted to see that there are some people here, some relatives of some of the participants and some of the characters in it. Mrs. Cusick, whose father was in Mountjoy jail just before Kevin Barry was hung, and recalled seeing Kevin Barry being led to the hangman. Also, Paul Traynor, whose uncles and that Joseph Traynor was pictured in it, and there's some more pictures of the Traynors indeed in the RAF camp in Curragh, where many Kildare men spent some time courtesy of the British Empire. The genesis of this book probably began when I was only a mere youth, when I listened to stories by my great aunt Ellen Gall, who recalled the Black and Tans burning Bushells bookshop or boot shop outside beside the Leinster Leader after the killing of 2 RIC men in Green Hills and Kill. And she had worked in Colburn's Jewellers, which was just across the road from it, and would have been there at the time, and recalled this incident, one of the major reprisals in County Kildare. And growing up listening to these stories was great for me, because later on, when I got older, I could do something about it. I could actually sit down, write it out and record it for posterity, and that people, local people, as indeed Aegis says, not the main commanders or the big generals or the people we all hear of like Lloyd George or Michael Collins or any of those, but the ordinary foot soldier, the ordinary person that participated in maybe the Easter Rising or in the War of Independence, whether there were people like Molly Higgins that just delivered messages when she was a mere girl of 15, or the women of Cumann, the guys that were collecting intelligence for Michael Collins. It's all here, and it's for their families and relatives, and that it's great to have something on record to see that they did their bit for Irish freedom. And as we are now entering this decade of celebration, this of 100 years from 1913 to 1923, of course there'll be many books on the subject. And 2 years ago I had one on the Irish Civil War, and even though we're kind of going backwards, we're in the War of Independence now, the next one will be, of course, 1916, the Easter Rising. And I'm sure we'll be all around for that one as well. Hopefully we'll have a bigger crowd. But my special thanks to my publisher Mary Field, who was here behind the camera and has come all the way from the rebel county of Cork up to the Pale of Kildare for this book launch, and many others who helped me along the road. As I said, Mrs. Cusick, Paul Traynor, my colleagues in the Riverbank and Newbridge Library, Mario Curragh and Carol Kiley, Ian McGinn for organising this event, the staff of course for the cafe here, for all the wonderful drinks that I could do with one now, and tea, coffee and everything else that will put on. And of course our guys from the reenactment group of Monasterevin, who were dressed as Irish volunteers. I thought the Black and Tans were going to come, but the lads tell me that they're going off raiding somewhere else. They decided to leave Newbridge alone. They heard it was too big of a crowd here, so they didn't want to come in. But thank you again for all turning up again on a wonderful evening, and for the support over the years for any of the books that I write, and especially my family and my wife Caroline and Brian and Tara and all Julie and Graham and all the rest of us that are always there behind the scenes, putting up with me when I'm sitting behind a laptop or I'm off in some other place and I'm thinking when they're talking to me, or not answering when they're talking to me or whatever. But that's the part of a writer, I suppose, and a historian. So once again, thank you very much for buying the book and reading the book, and I hope you enjoy it. And we will withdraw inside and listen to Michael's rendition of The Wicked Outfitter. Thank you very much. You ready?
Okay, sure. We're back in that. Lock all the exits. First of all, I'd like to thank James for asking me to sing this song today. I'm very shy about it, so he's one of the few people I'd probably do it for. And I'd like to thank him for being, if you like, a guardian, a purveyor of our sometimes sad but wonderful history. So, you deserve all the success going to come your way. As James said, this song is about my great uncle Padder Clancy. He was Vice Brigadier in the Dublin Brigade in the War of Independence. On the 21st of November 1920, he was lifted by the British and he was interrogated in Dublin Castle. He wouldn't betray his comrades, and the British murdered him. So I suppose Ireland has a lot of unsung heroes, and I suppose Padder Clancy is mine. In the 1916 rising at the Four Courts garrison, fighting for Ireland's freedom, we were one of her bravest sons. Those sentenced to death and bound in chains in a foreign land. In your heart there was a burning flame to free your motherland. Well, they could not break your spirit, and now we know they never would. You returned to dear old Ireland to lead your brotherhood. The squad take out the Cairo gang, but the British alerted the plan. Who can we interrogate? Clancy is the man. Clancy the boy from Cranny, a tailor was his trade. A hero of Easter rising, would not betray his comrades. In a Dublin Castle guard room, the Conor Clune and Dick McGee, his final night a hellish torture, so that Ireland would be free. You stood through their net the first time, but they laid it at your digs. Rules of war abandoned, pain and torture did away. Give us the names you feared, but your answer was just no. Then you will have to take their place, and bravely you did go. When your comrades saw your body, your sacrifice was clear. Beaten, shot and bludgeoned, Michael Collins shed a tear. But you cannot kill a hero, because a legend will live on. The name of Father Clancy, one of Ireland's greatest sons. Clancy the boy from Cranny, a tailor was his trade. A hero of Easter rising, would not betray his comrades. And a Dublin Castle guard room, with Conor Clune and Dick McGee, his final night a hellish torture, so that Ireland would be free. Can you tell me what's a hero? Are they born or are they made? Cause you gave your life completely so that others would be saved.
Woo!
Michael wrote the words and the music of that, and you can see how I am very proud of him, and I think it's a fantastic song, a fantastic tribute to one of Ireland's greatest heroes. Thank you. Anybody want to sing Come Out Your Blackened Hands, right? Penny Takers.